If you've been paying attention to theater news this past week, you may be aware of the controversy around The Great Comet and the casting of Pierre, particularly how Kirete Naudoan, also known as Oak, was asked to step down suddenly from the role 2 weeks into his 9-week run so that Broadway legend Mandy Patinkin could move into the role. The main reason for this, according to Dave Malloy, is that the show is on the brink of closing after Josh Groban and Ingrid Michaelson's departures. One important thing to note here, however, is that Oak is a young actor of color who actually managed to be cast as the leading man in a Broadway show in a role not specifically written to be performed by a black man, something that even in 2017 is still not too common, and he's being replaced by an old white veteran. Something else to be noted is that he is not some unknown actor. Oak, he originated the role of Hercules Mulligan and James Madison in Hamilton, and you may remember Hamilton as being kind of like a really big deal. Oak was brought on to help the falling ticket sales, and succeeded mostly. During Josh Groban's run, the show pulled in about $1.2 million in ticket sales per week. It dropped by about $500,000 each week after he left, but when Oak was brought in, sales went back up to about $1 million per week. Oak was only scheduled for 9 weeks, but the producers went back on that agreement. I believe the show's producers made the switch out of financial desperation, but that does not also mean that there isn't a racial element, but more that the producers were not thinking about their treatment of Oak as an actor with consideration of Broadway's systemic problem with actors of color. I'm less concerned with the actual events that transpired. The more important thing to me is the reaction to the controversy. And if you ever wanted a reminder that both theater and theater people have a race issue, look no further than the message boards on BroadwayWorld.com. I want to read you one of my favorite comments from these because it's both completely ridiculous and completely indicative of how out of touch these people are.
There should be no racial element to this story. The show wasn't selling tickets, so they ditched the lead and called in a star name to bail it out. If they had hired Urkel or Cedric the Entertainer, would the show have stayed running for 3 more weeks? Now a whole group of actors are out of work.
I don't know what it says about you that you pulled out Urkel and Cedric the Entertainer as your 2 names for talented black big name actors, but it's probably not great. Looking at these, you get the sense that these people are just waiting to say something is not racial, and whether it was or not, a good rule of thumb is that if you're a white person and you don't see the racial aspect of something, you get to not see the racial aspect. You get to not be aware of this thing called race. That's how our lives are different. I will never know what black actors or black people go through on a daily basis. I will never have that experience, no matter how much of a white ally I consider myself. I will never truly understand. Here's another gem.
Ridiculous. Congratulations, Oak. You're an actor no one gives a crap about, and you're obviously not a box office draw. Then you turned a non-racial thing into a racial thing. This is why people don't like self-important actors. Your show will probably close now that you've done this. Hope it makes you feel great that you probably put a lot of people out of work, and now you've embarrassed yourself. Everyone in your show on Broadway legend. Good job. I'm sure a lot of producers will want to cast you in the future.
Talk about both thinly veiled and deep-rooted, what's the word for it? Hatred is probably accurate. And there was a lot of sentiment like this that I'm not going to repeat because, honestly, it doesn't deserve a platform, so. And I saw some of it on my Facebook feed, white theater people rushing to say how the race card was played, which, I'm sorry, that phrase is so lazy that it automatically invalidates your argument, sorry. And a lot of blaming Oak, as if Oak himself had caused the show to close, as if Oak himself had incited something, as if the problem was not Broadway's long-standing failure to reward talent of color, or that the problem might have been that The Great Comet was robbed of every single award, and it could have prospered if the Tony voters were more concerned with artistic merit than commercial success. But anyway, why did they think Oak started the fire? Here's his statement. I always try to speak from my heart with love after listening. I've listened. I'm more than grateful for all the love and support the community and fans have shown me. It makes what we do and deal with as artists easier when you know many people do indeed have your back and that you are valued for your work. In spite of everything, I am grateful to have had the time to bring this character to life with a remarkable cast that truly make the Imperial Theater a sacred place every night. My pops would always tell me to be aware of the company you keep. I'm fully aware of the remarkable talents this cast holds with Denis at the helm. My work is just a reflection of what they bring, have brought, and will continue to bring, be it me, Mandy, whomever is co-pilot to Denis. August 13th will be my last show. I will not be returning. So make room in your schedule between now and August 13th. Come through, have a drink, and let's celebrate the time we have because, as always, that's all we are guaranteed. We make the most of the gifts we are given, and I'm driven to deliver a defining moment in time with every line I let loose on stage. I'm sorry, did I miss something inflammatory in that statement? His response is overwhelmingly just thankful for the love and the experience he's received and the people he's got to work with, and yet he's managed to be maligned left and right because for some reason it's his fault. For some reason he is the one who is going to cause 30 theater professionals to lose their jobs. There is no blame being thrown. He's gracious. There's no hint of bitterness towards Mandy. I saw a lot of hate from a community of people I thought would be better. We need to be better. Just because we consider ourselves progressive on some social issues doesn't mean we don't have other things we need to work on. We seriously need to take a look at how we think of the issue of race and acknowledge that Broadway does not have a stellar track record, and it's up to us to fix that. Finally, I want to share with you the words of Great Comet's own Azadi Ineshque because he puts it better than I ever could. It took me a while to formulate and reflect on these thoughts, but I want to make a couple of things clear. As a man who has devoted a great amount of my life to the study of critical race theory, who has an honors degree from NYU in the study of the African diaspora, who continues to fight each and every day in the triple consciousness of Black, African, and American, I can tell you unequivocally that Rachel Chavkin and Dave Malloy are two of the truest white allies that I've ever met. Now, this is not about perpetuating a white savior trope / falling into that narrative because a white savior does not exist, and like all people, they are not perfect, as they would readily admit. But in my 4.5 years of friendship with both of these humans, I have seen very few white people as committed to a thorough, nuanced, pragmatic approach to diversity, as committed to having open and honest dialogues on issues that the privilege afforded to them by their white skin allows them to overlook. I have seen them hold themselves accountable in their past failings. I have seen them navigate the real truth of how can we maintain / promote true diversity in the face of a system literally predicated on suppressing that very same diversity. Mistakes were clearly made. Really bad mistakes on all sides. My brother in art, Oak, did not deserve to be treated how he was treated. This statement is by no means an attack on the responses to the very obvious problematic optics of replacing a young, incredibly talented Black actor for an older white legend who was assumed to but truly had no part in this, to boost ticket sales in the manner that it was done. Race is always relevant, especially when it comes to representation. We do not live in a colorblind society. Although it is a social construct, it has very real implications. Anyone who says otherwise is living in ignorant bliss. However, if we truly want to dismantle the system and put truth to power, we must do it in a nuanced, critically thought-through way that examines the superstructures that allow oppression to thrive. In this context, if your response for this does not include a critique/indictment on capitalism, then what indeed are you thoroughly critiquing in a real way at the end of the day? In producing and sustaining a Broadway show, the bottom line is the dollar, or your show eventually closes. The pitchfork mentality of society, conjoined with the proliferation of social media, continually runs the danger of cutting off true dialogue and manifests itself into an attack fest where listening to contrary viewpoints is shoved out the window, which is not useful. In our political discourse, this is true on all sides of the coin. My whole life, I've been all about speaking truth to power, but in order to do that, you must understand the language of your oppression. I've studied and continue to study the many progressive titans of our history, from MLK to Stokely to Malcolm to Du Bois to Ida B. Wells, Mary Church Terrell to E.C. Stanton to global icons like Mandela, Gandhi, and many more. These champions in history changed the status quo by shouting truth to power and by having a thorough, nuanced analysis of what the superstructures of power were and how to dismantle it from its root. Please do not be hoodwinked. Do not be bamboozled into scapegoating one show to be the main representation of Broadway's very real diversity problem. A show that employs on stage alone 15 actors of color, a show that, comparatively speaking, is among the upper echelon, if not the most diverse musical on Broadway. I'm not saying it doesn't have its flaws when it comes to diversity. I personally have had multiple open, fruitful convos with Rachel and Dave about my perception of how we have failed in some regards when it comes to the opportunity for an even more diverse show. And they have always welcomed it, listened, problematized, took accountability. At the end of the day, I take pride in the artistic achievement that God has blessed me to have been a part of for the past 4.5 years. And once again, this statement is in no way saying that huge mistakes were not made, because if they were, the situation was unfair to all. But my call is for nuance, layered, critical thinking, putting language to root causes and asking questions to hear answers, not to just blitz with no hope of a dialogue. Peace, love, and God bless you all. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I am more than happy to engage in a meaningful way privately. Nuance, layered critical thinking, putting language to root causes, and asking questions to hear answers, not to just blitz. I'll see you next time.